Hello, everyone, to another episode of the Reverse Sweep Show. This is your host SS, and joining me as ever is my co-host AB. There's been a lot of cricket despite India not being playing. AB, what have you been following?
Yeah, you said India is not playing, and all of us are feeling that vacuum. But then, somewhere down south in Australia, in northern Australia, in fact, there's an early start to the Australian summer. An interesting series which is going on between South Africa and Australia. The T20I series just got over, and we just cannot have enough of Glenn Maxwell winning matches and series for Australia. So he did that. What about you, SS? What are you following in the cricketing world of late? And more importantly, what's the topic for today?
Yeah, Devil Brevis and Maxwell, both we were talking about, and Devil Brevis, no look sixes, and but yeah, I think Maxwell came good, and Australia won the series. I was also following a fair bit about the West Indies and Pakistan series, and West Indies turned around and won the series. I think kudos to them, and it's a breath of fresh air for West Indies cricket in general that they are able to cross the line and win a series. For today's topic, we are just doing more or like a storytelling episode, and what we are looking for is greatest rescue acts in Test cricket. There have been so many greats ebb and flow. I mean, as recent as the last series where Mohammad Siraj did wonders for us, and there was so much crests and troughs throughout the series, we thought that it would be a great episode to do, looking back at the golden history of Test cricket. There have been so many moments. Which ones do we choose? And in order to structure it, we have tried to categorize into different ways. AB, what and how should we go about this?
Quick timeout. If you are loving this dive into cricket's wild twists and turns, hit that like button and subscribe to the Reverse Sweep Show.
And if you've got that one friend who can't stop talking about cricket, share this episode with them and bring them into the squad.
Yeah, as you mentioned, SS, there is such a rich cricketing history with specifically with respect to Test cricket, not just in the recent times, but going all the way back in early 1900s as well. So we thought let's structure the episode into three different segments. We pick up one story each from each of the segments, and the first one is the most popular rescue acts. This is something which are the absolute crowd pleasers, something that people always remember when they think about Test cricket and some of the most amazing Test matches ever. The second one is the underrated ones. These are essentially the ones which don't get spoken of enough. Amazing performances, but then have somehow gone under the radar, and people don't speak about it enough. The third one, of course, is then the old time classics, the forgotten classics. So we go way back in the cricketing history, in the cricketing archives, and bring some amazing stories from there. So with that said, SS, the first one, which is the crowd pleaser, what's your pick?
Yeah, there were so many options, and I think we'll also mention some of the honorable mentions that we decided not to because we had choice of only picking one each in the three categories you mentioned. For the crowd pleaser, I've still gone a bit back in time, but it's something that is etched in the Ashes folklore and also in the cricketing folklore. Botham's Ashes, 1981, England versus Australia, the Ashes in England. And we are talking about the third test match, I think, at Headingley. Australia were going 1-0 up. Greg Chappell wasn't playing, Kim Hughes was the captain, but still a decent Australian team, and they're taking the lead. And England were going through its own turmoil for the preceding 12 months. Botham was made the captain, but he was struggling as it was almost like Sachin Tendulkar in the late 90s when he was made the captain. His batting struggled. Botham struggled with the bat and the ball. And then England mid-series in Ashes, they called on one of the greatest tactician in the English game, Mike Brearley. Wrote the famous book Art of Captaincy and everything around it, and he became the captain, and then everything turned. Australia batted first. They made close to 400 runs, and then England batted and could only muster 174. I think both have made a 50 already, so he was already showing some signs of improvement with the role being taken away from him. So England were effectively in a position where they had to do follow on, and then the magic started. There are very interesting anecdotes. I was reading a brilliant Guardian article around it. The odds were 500 is to 1 for England to win from there.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah. And apparently, this is a folklore. Nobody has confirmed it probably, but Dennis Lilly and Rod Marsh actually placed a bet on it as well. So there have been rumors that did something happen, but they placed a bet, and yeah, and there was very less crowd coming in as well. Only 2,000 people turning up on a Monday, apparently, because that was a fourth day. Usually, English Test matches start on a Thursday. And England continued to struggle. Jeff Boycott was showing some resistance. I think he made close to 40 or 50 runs. There was 105 for 5 in Botham. came about. So they were trailing by 227 runs when Botham came on 105 for 5. So they were almost still trailing by good 120 runs. And then Botham played the innings of a lifetime. People say the fourth Test match innings was even better, but this was the more miraculous act. That's why I categorize it. He made 149, had long partnerships with the eighth wicket, the ninth wicket, and even 10th wicket with Bob Willis. And they were able to somehow sneak in with a third innings lead of 130 runs. Amazing at the very end when he felt that he needed to score, accelerate, he was able to do that. When he felt that he could give trust to his partners who were showing a lot of determination, he was able to also do that. And then,
And in fact, I had read somewhere that England was still trailing by around 90 odd runs with 3 wickets
yeah.
left. So that is how far back in the game they were.
Absolutely. And why I also picked that story is it people call it the Botham's Ashes, and Botham was great with the bat and the ball. And something that I also want to point out in the first innings, he also took 6 wickets, even though Australia made 400 runs. So 6 wickets, he made a 50, then he makes a 149, and then uh, the guy who he stitched the final partnership with, Bob Willis. I think later on we came to know him as an excellent commentator for many a decades following English cricket. He had a lot of shoulder injuries and he was like at the fag end of his career and body worn and torn. But he did like the most epic spell, 130, and he picked up like what, 7 wickets or something like that, and bundled Australia out for 111 on the fifth day. And this led to the turnaround in the series because Australia then went on to lose the next two test matches as well. Botham was excellent in the fourth test match and the fifth test match. England won the series 3-1, retained the Ashes because they had won the last one in Australia as well. And that's why we remember the Botham's Ashes. And that's why when Ben Stokes did the epic thing in the Ashes,
Headingley.
like almost Headingley, again, the same venue, 3 decades down, people were still comparing him. So Ian Botham is Sir Ian Botham, and there's a reason behind it, that series. But I think I would give a lot of credit to Willis and the final innings because even though Botham did all that, England was so much behind in the game, man. 130 was a target, and then Bob Willis had to turn on the final day with his worn and torn body, and that completely went through the Australian batting line. Amazing, amazing test match, amazing series, and something that a lot of cricket purists still remember and the beauty of test cricket.
Absolutely, and I absolutely love your pick, SS, for many reasons. One of the facts about this test match is that this was just the second time in the entire history of test cricket that a team following on had won. The first time was back in the 1800s, and that is how rare it was. The other fact that I love about this, SS, is that we talk about batting when we typically think about rescue acts, and then you speak about Bob Willis from a bowling perspective as well. So that is one point that I
Yeah.
absolutely love about this story.
Yeah, he actually did 8 for 43. I was just checking the statistics.
8
I
for
mean, that's
43, yeah.
amazing. So it wasn't even a 7 for, it's 8 for 43. Crazy.
Insane. And in fact, I have one more Bob Willis story from this very match when England started bowling, defending 130 odd. Bob Willis was actually bowling up the hill.
Yeah,
And he was the fastest bowler in the English attack at that point of time. And at some point of time, he actually went and spoke to the English captain that why am I bowling up the hill when I'm the fastest bowler? And he eventually got a change of ends, and that is when he wreaked havoc on the Australian team. And the reason that the English captain gave was that I made you bowl up the hill just to make you angry.
that's
And
Mike Brearley's art of captaincy for you.
art of
Mike Brearley was
captaincy.
almost 40 years, and people said that Mike Brearley was told not to carry more on because there were two tough tours of West Indies coming home and away. But then after the Botham crisis, they brought him in and he won. I mean, that's why he's such a legend in captaincy circles. But that's an amazing story as well, just changing the ends and wreaking havoc.
Yeah. Now to continue off the 2 points that we spoke about. One is a team following on and winning the match. The second is a bowler also playing a massive part in that. I pick up a very similar story because these stories have a kind of their way in the cricketing folklore. And I'm sure people by now would have guessed where I'm headed. I'm headed towards 2001, that epic match in Eden Gardens. Australia showing up to the Indian shores on a 16 match win streak when they came against that Indian side in Kolkata. Australia batting first scored 400 plus. India bundled out for I think 170 odd, with only VVS Lakshman crossing a 50. So a complete domination by the Australian players. And then Steve Waugh decides that okay, we'll give a follow on and we'll probably wrap up the match by the end of day third or day fourth. And India did not start well. They were around I think 130, 140 odd for three. They were still
Yeah.
trailing trailing behind massively in the game. And that is when VVS Lakshman found a partner in Rahul Dravid, and they stitched a massive
I
partnership
think they
of
were
380 plus.
120. I think they were 121 for four because Ganguly had also gone. Dravid was batting at number six, and then no wickets fell on the day four.
Right. And that is when they batted for the entire day, 110 overs or something like that. And it wasn't an innings where they went into their shell, they were counter attacking. I still remember those shots that VVS Lakshman played off of Shane Warne coming outside his crease and then flicking him off to
Yeah,
mid
stuff of
on.
legends. That's what
Stuff of
childhood was
legends.
made of.
And also, not to mention that this is one match which kind of changed Indian cricket in itself because Indian cricket was going through such a lot of turmoil after the match fixing scandal. A very young team, captained by a very young person, Saurav Ganguly, still finding their feet in world cricket. And then this match happens, and it kind of turns the entire tide for Indian cricket team. And plus, Indian team was also missing their biggest match winner, Anil Kumble, in that series. So yeah, I mean, it's got to be one of the most popular rescue acts.
Yeah.
And then we know what Harbhajan Singh did in that fourth innings, like
Yeah, yeah. I
taking
think he took a hat trick
six
as well.
wickets,
Let's
hat
let's
trick
not
as well.
forget. Yeah, and 13 wickets
Yeah,
in the match.
absolutely.
I think it's one of the test matches that gets rated a lot in all the Cricket Info articles. Among the one greatest test matches of the 21st century, if not the history of cricket. That series itself, India was 1-0 down and they win the series 2-1. That was also only the third time that a team ever did that. And I remember, I mean, the opening partnership, the Sadgopan Ramesh and Shiv Sundar Das and all that, but there's so many memories around it, but it was that Lakshman Dravid partnership with that Harbhajan thing. What, he picked 31 wickets, 32 wickets in three test matches.
In three
I think
matches.
it's a stuff of legends. And even on day five, because people said that Ganguly waited a bit more for the declaration, and then India didn't have time to bowl out. He gave the ball that Sachin, you have 1 over to bowl, and Sachin gets Gilchrist out, and he took two or three wickets. India were like really running for victory, and it amazing. That's like a crazy test match and such an amazing memory, so to speak. For my second pick, and this time we go into the under the radar category, the category where we feel that people might have not rated as highly, even though that was really significant. I go to the 90s, the mid of 90s, 1995. It's the England tour of South Africa, five test match series. The first test match was a close draw. Not a close draw, actually, it was a rain affected draw in which not even one innings was completed, but overall, South Africa won the series 2-0. But the test match that we are talking about is a Johannesburg test match. South Africa, captained by Hansie Cronje, had Alan Donald and Sean Pollock firing in all cylinders. You had Gary Kirsten, Hudson, Cullinan, Brian McMillan as a seeming all-rounder, and they made quite a lot of runs in the first innings. And England had decent batting lineup, Atherton and Alex Stewart opening, and then you had Hick, Ram Prakash, Thorpe, and Robin Smith. But they considered a lot of runs. I think they were quite down, I think, considered close to 120, 130 runs. And then South Africa batted again, made around 350 runs, declared. Brian McMillan made 100. So you had a big target set for England around 450, 470 runs, if I remember correctly. And they had 11 hours to bat. So essentially, good portion of 2 days. Donald and Pollock on the helpful Johannesburg pitch. Johannesburg was a fortress at that point of time. South Africa never lost test matches there at all, and both were quite young and raring to go. And then came the war of attrition. They call it the love letter to attrition. It was like complete grit, no fireworks. I will just lug it out. Almost like Gautam Gambhir at Napier kind of stuff, but in more hostile conditions against a more hostile bowling attack. And Atherton took blows to his body, to his helmet, because Alan Donald was at his fearsome best. Atherton struggled a lot in his career to McGrath and Ambrose, but also to Donald. But on this instant, he stood up against him. At the end of day four, England were 145 for 4, and most of the top and middle order had gone after Alex Stewart stitched a good partnership. But it was Atherton at the end of the day with Robin Smith. On day five, Robin Smith got out as well, and then the big partnership with Jack Russell, the keeper. Jack Russell hardly made runs, but survived like 200 plus balls. But Atherton played the innings of his lifetime, Captain Marvel innings, something that you will associate with Graham Smith in the fourth inning, something like that. Made 185 not out. That is his best score. That was at that time the highest number of runs that were made in by an opposition batter at the Wanderers. And Alan Donald regards it as the greatest hostile fight that he has been, and one of the greatest things that he has seen, and obviously the best innings that he was seeing at close quarters while playing that test match. And even though Atherton continued to be dominated by Donald, and England lost the series. But that test match, that rescue act in which he stood up against Donald and as well as against Pollock and Macmillan, England survived, and one of the great innings as well, which goes a lot under the radar.
Amazing story, SS. I honestly remember all the duels that Alan Donald and Mike Atherton had, and in most of them, Donald got the better of Atherton. So that is what I
Yeah.
remember. All the crazy swinging deliveries, getting Atherton out, defeating this defense. But then this one, truly a forgotten kind of a match because I didn't know about it. And thanks for bringing this story. For my second pick, and this is something from the more recent history. This is from back in 22, a match which not a lot of people around the world would have followed when West Indies was traveling to Bangladesh. A very rare
Mm.
encounter at that. And 22, the match happening in Bangladesh, so spin friendly conditions. The very first match, Bangladesh batting first, they get off to a really good start, 400 plus on the scoreboard with Mehndi Hassan Miraz getting a century. Then the second innings, West Indies does not bat as well. They score, I think, 250 odd, so they concede a lead of 190 odd. Bangladesh, in their second innings, they declare for around 230. So essentially setting West Indies a target of 395, slightly less than 400, but still, if chased, would have been the highest chase in Asian conditions. And then West Indies find their heroes and two debutants, Kyle Mayers and Bonner, numbers 4 and 5. So three down, and they stitch together a 200-run partnership, if I'm not wrong. And Kyle Mayers eventually goes on to score a double century. So an amazing start to his test career, a double century in a chase to win a match. And then West Indies eventually goes on to win the series 2-0. And this is a full strength Bangladesh side at home. We know
Yeah.
how formidable they can be. So an amazing rescue act leading to an eventual win.
Yeah, and yeah, the beauty about this is the two debutants. Kyle Mayers, he's LSG blood, so I have special liking for him. And I remember that it was, I think people were like really, it was the highest chase ever in Asian conditions in the fourth innings, and people were not following the match. But when they saw that Bonner and Mayers were going really well, I remember subscribing to Fan Code at that point of time, just to quickly follow the game, what is happening, and then Bonner got out. And then there was this thing that will Windies collapse because Blackwood also got out and everything. But Kyle Mayers 210 not out. I mean that's amazing. I mean even if he retired after that game, that is his career set. People will just remember him for that if he does nothing in his life. I mean it goes really under the radar. So I really like your pick that it's true to the category name. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think let's go to the third one, which is more around the classics or the forgotten classics. And yeah, we were doing this recording with Behram Kazi.
I
Yeah.
can already see the shine in your eyes, SS. Looks like you're
Yeah,
going to go way back in the past with an amazing story.
yeah, I love this. So I mean, all my picks are pre-2000 in a way, and this one came an idea about when we were thinking about the show because we did a show with Behram picking an all Asia 11 in a draft mode, and he mentioned about Hanif Mohammad as the opener for him. Hanif Mohammad, the original Little Master, even before Gavaskar and Sachin got that. And I was looking at, okay, I always knew about this 337 knock that he did. I think it was the second highest score when he did just below Lynn Hutton, and I wanted to read up a bit about it. And then when I came to know about it and what happened in the Test match and series, I was like, this is definitely going in this episode. And yeah, so it was a five Test match series, 1958. Windies was slowly starting to get really good. I mean, they have had good players. Sobers had already broken into the team. You had the three Ws, Weeks, Walcott, and your Royal Gilchrist, who was an amazingly fearsome bowler. And decent team. Pakistan had just started playing cricket 6 years back. They never played too many matches as well. I think Hanif Mohammad played for 17 years and hardly played matches. And they had Fazal Mahmood, who was like a really good bowler with an average of 24 and everything. So those were like the two stars in the team. Five Test match series. The first Test match was a draw as well. This is second Test match at Barbados, and Windies batted first and made huge runs. I think they were in excess of 600, and they declared. Everton Weeks made 197. I think Sobers made a 50 as well. There was one more century. So yeah, Fazal Mahmood picked up some wickets, but Pakistan folded around in 106 runs. And remember, these were the days when you had a rest day in the middle, but also speciality of this series, this was a 6-day test match. So you 106 getting all out, considering a lead of almost 500 runs, or at least close to 450 runs or something of that sort. How can
No
you go
chances of
about
winning.
it? No chances of winning. You have to survive, and this is like the third morning or something that they got bundled out. So they have to basically bat for 3.5 days. And Hanif was the opener, and he had such a good partnership with the opener. So the opener, kudos to him as well. They reached around 151 something, and first wicket fell down. Pitches were helpful, but this innings was monumental in the day. Fourth day, fifth day, going into sixth day, Hanif was still batting. He was around close to 300 almost when the fifth day ended, or the fifth playing day ended. 16 hours. It's still the world record in terms of test cricket, the longest test innings. It was the second highest run scored ever. It is still the highest runs in test innings by any Pakistani cricketer. And till very recently, it was the longest innings even in first class cricket when a certain Rajdeep Nair from, I think, Himachal Pradesh broke the record by 45 minutes almost. Pakistan were able to salvage this. Hanif Mohammad's. It is just the crazy amount of determination, great physical conditioning, mental conditioning. Roy Gilchrist absolutely purring from one side of the end, trying to bounce him out and intimidate him. But he was at it in those days with no equipments and everything. Just the sheer amount. I think on the sixth day, it became like big news in Caribbean, and a lot of people came to the stadium to watch the game and see the original little champion bat. And Pakistan were able to take it so deep that it was only 10 overs that were left for effectively for anyone to bat, even though they could only set up a target of 180. So they were so behind in the test match that even after this amount of batting for 3.5 days, they scored 500 odd runs and they were still only 180 runs ahead. But yeah, there was no time for West Indies to chase it down. It will go down as the greatest probably innings from Pakistan, one of the greatest ever in the history, surely the longest still, and probably it will continue to remain just how Test cricket is going. Nobody's going to bat for 16 hours, right? You might get a 500, but no 16 hours. Yeah, Hanif Mohammad had to feature it.
Insane, absolutely insane. And I remember SS back in the first season when we were doing hot takes. This was one of your picks for a record which will never get broken. I mean, I
Absolutely.
of course knew about this particular record from Hanif Mohammad, but a lot of context is something which people miss out on. I never knew that
Yeah.
it was played in such a condition where Pakistan had almost lost the match. It was a rescue act, which is something which makes this even more special.
Yeah, getting
And
100 all
these are the
out
kind.
after the opposition has made 600 and then you still save in a 60 test match. I mean, that's crazy.
Absolutely. And I'll try to get to a similar period in cricketing history with a slightly similar story having some parallels. I go to the year 1930 when England is visiting again West Indies, and they are apparently in a timeless test. So no 6 days, it
Hmm.
is timeless.
Wow.
So the story behind this is that the series was at a 1-1 and they had a final match to play. They decided that this will be a timeless match. We want a result. So we want the series to not end in a draw. So they say that, okay, we'll play for as long as it takes. Now, England, they bat first. Sandham scores the first triple century in Test cricket
Correct.
history, and England
Yeah.
amass a score of 800 plus. Insane. And in return, West Indies are able to score around 200 odd, if I'm not wrong, considering a lead of almost 600. And that is crazy to think of, right? And then
Amazing.
England decide to bat again just because their players needed some rest, and there
Yeah, a
were a lot
couple of
of old people
50-year-old
in.
or 40-year-old probably there.
So they decide to bat again. Eventually, they set a target of, I think, again 800 odd for 836, if I'm not wrong, for West Indies to win. An absolutely impossible task. And that is where our hero of the story comes in, George Hadley, also nicknamed the Black Bradman. So he was a
Or
21
as Bradman is
batsman.
called, as White Headley.
Either ways, yeah. But a genius batter. A lot of hype around him, really highly touted in the cricketing circles at that point of time, and he plays one of the best innings of his life. He bats on for 2.5 days till I think the date was April of 10th, if I'm not wrong, and scores a 223 in a very gritty innings, and like amazing shots, drives, pulls, hooks, from what we hear of it, of course. And eventually 10th of April, he gets out, and they're also helped by a bit of rain. 11th and 12th, it just rains and rains in the Sabina Park,
England,
and then
England has
13th of
to
April
England has to catch the ship.
has to catch the ship. And this was the first time when a match ended in a draw after mutual agreement. So we talk a lot about
Wow.
handshakes right now. But then these were the conditions in which the first handshake eventually happened. But yeah, an amazing rescue act from George Hadley.
Yeah, incredible
Eventually a timeless
story.
test, and West Indies has no way of winning it, and with a little bit of help from the rain, but of course amazing batting on display, and West Indies is able to save the match and also the series.
Yeah, it's amazing picks that we have done. I think kudos to both of us for going back in time and trying to, research a bit and tell the story of such great matches. People might have heard about it, but not the context, as you said. But I think we missed out a lot of stories as well because we had to choose only one. Which are the ones that really hurt you that you couldn't mention? Let's mention now.
So let's go by the categories that we had, right? So the first one is
Yeah.
popular, the crowd pleasers. I think Ben Stokes Headingley Miracle was definitely one thing which I wanted to pick, but then we had Ian Botham's Ashes and VVS Lakshman Dravid's partnership. So that is one which I thought needed to be spoken about, but we could not. I think another one was VVS Lakshman's match-winning effort in Mohali against Australia. I think
Yeah.
2009, where he batted with the tail. So the
Used
Lord's Test
Pragyan
match,
Oja.
and very unlike PVS Lakshman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course, who can forget the last BGT when India toured Australia in 2020-21? We had an amazing rescue act by Ashwin and Vihari, and then followed by Pant and Pujara in the Gabba match.
Yeah.
So I
Sydney
think
plus
these were some of
Gabba.
the ones that Sydney plus Gabba. What about you, SS? Which were the ones that you really wanted to speak about but missed out on?
Yeah, I know he gets a lot of brickbats. Our coach Gautam Gambhir was part of the famous Napier Test match in which India had to bat for good 7 sessions, I think, and he was able to make. I think a lot of times in New Zealand you are able to do that because of the good pitch conditions, but that was still a monumental effort from his side. I remember Sachin made an 83, couple of I think Dravid made an 80 or something, but I think he did like an incredible job holding one end up. So I think that was something that stood out for me. We already mentioned about Siraj at Oval right now as well. Another data, Kusal Pereira. I mean, come on. I mean, it's very unlucky that he doesn't get a mention, but that was an epic thing after the Ben Stokes heroics in Ashes. I think he also did in the same year around the same time. I think Sri Lanka was really down in cricket. South Africa were really struggling as well at that point of time. But to do that with the final wicket and chasing that amount of runs, amazing innings as well. Bas McCullum, triple hundred versus India in 2014. I think they were really behind in the game when he came about with I think Neesham was there and BJ Watling was there, and they were able to get through. And India should have won the test match. India lost the series eventually. In Forgotten Classic, I was looking at this Courtney Walsh effort versus Australia. I mean, Australia nearly broke the West Indies' great streak that was going around for many, many years in '88, I think, in Perth. And then he took a six for. They were chasing around 170 or something, and he bundled them out. And one that I remember well, you talk about 16 match winning streaks. One of the series that were part of that winning streak were when Pakistan and India went down under, and Pakistan in the second test match gave a very stiff target of 376 at Hobart. And, and Australia was struggling 120 out for 5, but then Gilchrist played his first great knocks. And yeah, Australia were able to chase 376 down. So that was a classic as well of
Amazing.
1999. So there you have it, guys. We did one pick each in the three categories and gave you so many honorable mentions. This was a really fun episode to research and talk about. And I think you could hear passion in our voices when we talked about our own stories. And we'll be back with more such episodes with some more short form content on YouTube and Instagram. So do follow us there and spread the word. And see you very soon. Till then, bye bye.